All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. I'm really excited actually for today's episode because it's going to be a little bit different than a lot of my other episodes. It's going to be a little less tactical, a little more mindset, and kind of like a follow-up episode because recently, like a couple months back, I released an episode where I was basically talking about like how to make sure, like questions to ask to basically make sure that you're making the right investments, what investments to make at different phases of your business. But recently, I've been having a lot of conversations with business owners who have been burned by a coach or a program that they invested in that didn't give you the return that you promised, that didn't give them the return that they were promised, whether it be results, support, accountability, whatever that looks like, right? And so this episode is really for you guys because I'm going to talk about the difference between making smart business investments and letting fear basically run your business. Because I've been seeing for a lot of business owners them basically saying like, oh, it just takes me a little bit of time to make decisions because I've been burned before. But they're basically blocking the exact thing that could potentially get them to where they want to go, because they want to make sure that they're making all of the right decisions, asking all the right questions, mitigating risk as much as possible, which is very normal to feel. But it also is, I would say, one of the things that slows growth pretty significantly that I've seen with a lot of business owners, because I've kind of noticed a pattern for them with really high-level business owners who've invested before. They're not only making smarter decisions, but they're making slower decisions. And that's not bad. It's not bad to try to make smarter decisions in business. Every single experience that you have as a human being or a business owner teaches you something. It teaches you to be better, ask different questions the next time. But a lot of people are calling it discernment when really it's fear running the show. And there's a lot of people who don't want to have this conversation, or who honestly may say that it's like, oh, well, you're just trying to get people to invest. I have had probably some of the worst investment experiences in my business. I've invested $30,000 into somebody who literally gave me no results and didn't even give me the support that I was contracted for. I've hired agencies. I've done so many different things. I have spent so much money on personal and professional development in my time and seen no ROI from it. But what I have also learned is that in the times where I felt like, oh, I don't need to make an investment, or I feel uncomfortable making an investment right now, or maybe I should slow down on this decision, making fast, smart decisions is, I actually think, what's changed the trajectory of my business and allowed me to grow as quickly as I did. So I want to talk about how to make smart business investments without getting stuck in like analysis paralysis for 6 months. So I want to break down like what is actually a smart business investment, and then what real due diligence looks like versus fear kind of like masked as wisdom. And I want to talk about the moment you stop protecting yourself and really start holding yourself back. So I want to kind of dive into some mistakes I've seen business owners make in this key area. And I want you to think about, as you're listening to this, I want you to remember I've been where you are. So I don't say this out of like, you need to be better or I'm better than you, because this has never happened to me. I have experienced the exact same things that you do, but I've learned so much along the way from making fast decisions as a business owner that my entire goal with this episode is to really impart that wisdom to you as much as possible so that you do make the best decisions for you, but you don't hold yourself back in the process. So as you're listening to this, know that that's like my intention. And I almost consider it like one of your best girlfriends who like loves you inside and out, kind of calling you out for behaviors that you're exhibiting that are holding you back. I want you to be the best version of yourself. And sometimes that requires identifying the things that we're doing where we're self-sabotaging. And I do actually think that this is one area business owners are self-sabotaging in. Okay, so mistake number one is that believing slow decisions are smart decisions. We'll just kind of start with what we've been talking about. A lot of times, if you get burned once, you suddenly start asking 1,000,001 questions. You spend 3 months sitting with it. You wait for testimonials, you wait for reviews, you wait for like a sign from the universe. You try to avoid making the same mistake twice, which I get that. Trust me. Like, no one wants to ever be burned a second time. A lot of times I always think about it like, if you were in a toxic relationship or you got divorced or something like that happened, you get smarter the next time you start dating. But that doesn't mean you just stop dating altogether, or you say no to someone who checks all of the boxes for what you want in a potential future partner. Because at that point, you're basically just saying no to the exact thing that you want on the pretense of like not getting hurt again. So my therapist, after my last breakup that was like over a year ago, super toxic, I was just telling her about like how I didn't want to date anymore. I didn't want to go on dates. I wasn't interested in that. And she's like, okay, well, do you still believe in love? Do you still believe in like a partner? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I believe in marriage. I don't know if I believe in monogamy. I don't know if I believe in a lot of things, but like in my wildest dreams, yeah, I believe in finding a lifelong partner. And she goes, do you still believe in love? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And she goes, well, what do you need to do in order to find love? And I was like, honestly, date. And she goes, okay, so if you still believe in love, if you still want to find a partner, you can't just shut out dating completely. Take a break, absolutely, do what you got to do. But like, I don't want you to say like, I'm never dating again, basically. And she also told me something that I feel like is very applicable. She goes, I was like, I'm also like not the best version of myself right now. So like anyone who I try to date, I don't feel like I would be able to form a serious connection with them without actually hurting them. Like, I'm scared I'm going to be the toxic one now. And she was like, you're not toxic, number one. But she goes, a lot of healing can happen in relationships, and it can actually make you believe in like the good in people again, so like just give people a chance. And I think the same goes for when you're considering making another investment after having been burned. Number one, if you still believe that you are capable of creating, a multi-million-dollar 8-figure business, and that's still what you want, what's the thing that's going to get you there? It's really, really hard to get you there on your own. Like, you could figure it out, but it would probably take you decades to figure it out. We all know that mentorship is oftentimes in any industry, in any capacity, the thing that allows you to skyrocket your success really quickly, because you learn from people's mistakes. You learn from people who have already created the success that you want to create. So it's like, okay, if you still want that, you're not going to skip out on the very thing that's going to get you there. But then also remember, just because you've had a bad experience does not mean that your next experience making an investment can't be incredibly healing. And I don't mean to sound like emotional or woo-woo, but it can prove you wrong, and you have to give people a chance to prove you wrong. Like, for example, after I made that really bad investment, the next investment that I made was into my former business coach, and she was absolutely incredible. And it really showed me like how good some people actually can be at their job when you pay them, and how supportive they can be, how they can hold up their end of the bargain, how they can really truly help you succeed and root for you. And so it was really healing, and it honestly made me believe in really incredible investments again. So a lot of times what happens when you're trying to avoid making that same mistake twice is that you're really cautious, but almost like overly cautious. You overanalyze everything, and a lot of times that can hold you back. But what actually happens from that is when you gather more information than you can act on, you wait so long that a lot of times the opportunity passes, or the problem gets worse that you're experiencing that you were trying to fix with that investment, or you miss the window you said you wanted to fix something in, right? Smart decisions aren't slow. Smart decisions are actually really strategic. They're based on what problem you're solving. They're based on whether the offer was built to solve it. They're based on the proof that it has been solved before, especially for your industry and your business model. Honestly, a lot of times I actually really think that this is like waiting for your engine to die to go to the mechanic. You're not protecting your car. You're just delaying the inevitable, right? I've had clients literally say like, oh, I've been burned before, so I just need like a couple of months to decide. I'm a really slow decision maker, so like I just need a couple months to decide, only to show up later with the exact problem, only now it's worse, right? One of my clients who recently joined the accelerator a couple of months ago, she basically initially inquired about working with me in 2024 and came back almost an entire year later, and she had just turned 40, and she was like, well, I'm having the same issue except that it's worse, but I'm tired of playing small. I'm tired of fucking around. Like, I just turned 40. This is my year. I'm ready to freaking do it. And 2 weeks after our kickoff call, she created $108K in sales, when before she was creating $20,000 in sales. So like, her making that decision, she could have seen those results a year ago, but she didn't, because she had been burned before and didn't want to make that investment. She's here now. It's all that matters, right? But what I want you to remember is that slowing down, it feels like it helps. It feels like it helps you process. But the longer you pause, the more anxious you get. You go in circles, you start second guessing everything you were super confident in, and eventually you end up exactly where you started. Only now you've lost time, you've lost opportunity, and you've lost momentum. Mistake number 2 is trying to get 100% certainty before moving. And this one is not going to feel good for me to say to you. There is no guarantee when it comes to business investing. Not in business, not in marketing, not in anything that leads to real growth. There just isn't. But smart business owners know this. And I'm not going to lie to you. If you, for example, I talk about Alex and Layla Hermosi a lot. They're incredible business owners and marketers. If you looked at them and you were like, I've been burned before and I'm really scared to make this investment, they would laugh at you. They would literally sit there and laugh, just because of their own experiences, where they're like, yeah, been there, done that. Like, they've probably wasted millions on bad investments, right? But that's the name of the game. You know that investment could potentially get you to where you want to go. And what I will also say is that any investment that I make, I still learn something. Like, even the one where I invested $30,000 and I got no ROI, I literally learned so much about what not to do. It was because of her. It's really funny because she would basically, unless I didn't have any questions to ask, I would come to the calls being like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, this, and this. What do you think? Yeah, you could do that. That sounds good. It was basically just like a sounding board, which I'm like, that's not really what I'm paying for, but whatever. And so we go 40 minutes into the call, and if she has nothing else to talk about, she'd be like, okay, well, let me know if you need anything. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm paying for your perspective. I'm paying for you to see things that I don't see. Ask me questions that I don't think to ask, right? It was because of her that I started prepping things when I would go into client meetings of like, these are the things I know we need to address. I know that we need to talk about. And I would let my clients go first. I still do, if they have any pertinent questions or anything that they want support in. And then after that, I'll go through my list and be like, okay, cool. Do you need help with this, 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 and this? Have you thought about this? What are you doing here? Why are we doing it this way? Because if someone is paying you for your knowledge and your perspective, it's not up to them to bring those things to the plate. However, all that to say, even though it was a quote unquote bad investment, it didn't give me the ROI I hoped it would, I still learned a lot about what not to do from that investment. And so I actually don't think that was a bad investment. But smart business owners know that there's no such thing as 100% certainty when it comes to getting results from a business investment, but they do it anyway. They don't move recklessly, but they do move confidently. They make the decision they can with the best information in front of them, and they take full ownership of the outcome. The problem is that if you become so obsessed with knowing you're going to see monetary results from an investment no matter what before you make that investment, you will stay stuck forever. Because you have to realize there's no guarantee that the rebrand will pay off. There's no guarantee that the podcast will land you clients or customers. There's no guarantee that business coach will help you triple your income, right? But if you keep waiting for the thing that makes you feel quote unquote certain, you will wait yourself out of every opportunity. You don't need 100% certainty. I always say you need 80% clarity or certainty and 100% commitment. I always say, if you have done your homework, if you have done your due diligence, if you have looked at their results, you know they create results for your industry, your business model, you've talked to past clients, you've talked about their process for if you're not seeing results from them, all of those things. If you've asked those questions, you're satisfied with the answers, you believe them, move forward. Because there's never a guarantee that you're going to actually see results. But I always say, like, good investments leave clues, typically just like bad investments do. So if you see those clues and you feel solid about them, you got to move forward. And I also, when you're in this process, want you to ask yourself, if the millionaire version of me was being faced with this decision, what would they do? What decision would they make? Because they've likely already overcome that fear. They already know that lesson, and they would probably move forward. Because that version of you is not moving from fear, they're moving from responsibility. Mistake number 3 is that thinking fear is intuition. 9 times out of 10, if you have been burned and you're thinking about making an investment, unless you have done your due diligence and you don't like the answers that they're giving you. Obviously, there are a lot of people who you could talk to that will not give you good answers, that will not give you good results. But if you've done your due diligence and everything looks and sounds good, you've talked to past clients, you've seen their results, all the things we just talked about, and you're getting this like gut feeling to not do it, that's not a gut feeling, that is a trauma response. The moment you start asking things like, but what if it doesn't work? Or what if I get burned again? Or what if I can't trust myself? You're not being intuitive, you're being scared. And this is not to say that your fear is not valid. It is completely, going back to the dating example that I gave, right? If you're like, oh my God, I don't want to move forward with this person because, like, what if they hurt me again? Or what if any of this happens and blah, 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 and you start catastrophizing, those feelings are so valid. But sometimes you're talking yourself out of the very thing that could give you exactly what you want, right? If you are letting fear run your business, if it's the reason that you stay on the fence, you are trading your growth for safety, because oftentimes growth equals risk, in my opinion. And what you have to remember is that safety does not scale. So when this is happening, anytime you hear that voice coming up, I want you to ask yourself, is this voice telling me not to invest because something feels misaligned or because I'm scared to bet on myself? Does it sound like strategy or does it sound like survival? Discernment comes from self-trust, not delay. I always ask myself, I'm like, is this the right decision? Have I done my due diligence? If I've done my homework, I trust myself to see results no matter what happens with that investment. I will make it work. I will get an ROI from it. You have to trust your system. So now let's kind of talk about what makes an investment super, super smart. So we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but number 1, track record of results. You want proof. The typical reason that I see a lot of people get burned when it comes to making investments is that they fell for really good marketing. That's what happened to me when I made that $30,000 investment. Looked at all of the content that she posted, loved all of her content, had a conversation with her, asked her if she'd ever worked with an agency owner. She said that she had, didn't give me specifics. I didn't know enough to ask about specifics, and we moved forward. Come to find out, she hadn't really worked with an agency that much. So you want to look for results, not one-off wins. You want real documented outcomes from real people, and you want to look for consistency. That's the other thing, is that there's 2 types of people that you should feel comfortable investing in. Number 1 is people who specialize in your industry and in your niche and in your business model. If they do not specialize in that, do not invest in them if they have not worked with your industry or your business model. However, on the other hand, if they have a proven framework or process that works for any industry, any business model, and they've worked with even like similar industries than you, that's okay. So like, for example, with us, it's not like I specialize in any one kind of industry, but our Wolf framework can be completely specified and personalized to a specific industry, business model, product, service, because I designed it that way, because it's based on marketing principles and frameworks. But if people don't teach that and they're like, oh yeah, I only work with social media managers or business coaches or any of those things, if you're not that, do not work with them. Ask about their framework, ask about their process. Because a lot of times those strategies that they're using just worked for them, not for anybody else. And typically you'll see that they work with industries or niches that are very similar to what they do. Number 2, you want to look for clients that you can talk to. I always say, if someone won't let you talk to their past clients, that feels weird to me. For me, for example, all of our contracts have NDAs in them. However, I have a long list of clients who are like, hey, if anyone ever wants to talk about the accelerator, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with them, send them my way. Or if anyone would ever like to talk about working with you, send them my way, right? I have people who will literally like volunteer. And I've also had people who I've been like, hey, I have someone who potentially wants to work with me. They're in a similar industry to you. Would you mind if they reached out to you? And if they say no, I will respect their privacy. But usually they say, absolutely, yeah, no problem. And so what I tell clients is, obviously I have NDAs in my contracts, so you can't just reach out to like any of my clients. However, I have a very long list of people who would be happy to talk to you. If that is not the transparency that people are willing to give you, to me, it feels like they're hiding something and that they need to be in control of the narrative of what people think of their program. Another thing that you want to be looking for is a sales process that builds trust, especially if you are going to be investing in high ticket services, a business coach, a consultant, a done for you person. I know people love to preach about DM sales, but if someone is unwilling to get onto a sales call with you and you're going to invest the equivalent of a car into them, move along, because they probably do not value you as a client more than they value the money that you're going to invest in them. I'll give you a great example. Before I invested in my last business coach, I was going to invest in a very well-known marketing coach. If I dropped her name, if you guys were around 4 or 5 years ago, you'd know exactly who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to do that. And so I booked a call. I was very interested in potentially working with her because she had worked with agencies in the past. The closer who I spoke to, or like her sales rep, was actually her husband. And this person was extremely expensive to work with. I think it was like $6,000 per month. And at the time I was like, damn, like that's really fucking expensive, right? More than I had ever invested. And we had a great conversation, and I basically was like, listen, I love everything I'm hearing. I don't feel comfortable investing this unless I can have a conversation with her first. I just want to make sure that we'll gel. I just want to make sure that everything feels good. And I will never forget what he said to me. He's like, sorry, she doesn't take calls. Like, what do you mean she doesn't take calls? Like, we're going to be working together for 6 months minimum, and I'm going to be paying her more than I pay, like probably 3 times what I pay in rent at that time, right? Like, that's no small feat. And so to me, I had another conversation with someone else who was more than happy to get on a call with me, and I immediately went with them because I think it speaks volumes if someone is unwilling to have a conversation with you, but expects you to pay them that much money per month. I understand the concept of having a closer. If you don't want to take sales calls, I get that. But if you're going to be asking people to pay you that much money, look for somebody who's willing to get on a call with you and like talk about what you want to talk about. And then lastly is I want to make sure that you can actually see a gap that they fill. Don't just invest to invest. This is a really big mistake I see so many people making is they're like, oh, well, I want to increase my income, so I'm just going to hire a business coach. It doesn't work like that. Know what gap is holding you back from hitting your goals and hire for that or invest for that. Do not just do like a blanket investment. That's where people get really disappointed. Business coaches are generalists. They're really good at a lot of things. So they can talk about team, systems, processes, product suite, marketing, sales, product development. They can talk about all sorts of things with you, operations, client retention, doesn't matter, right? However, if you're someone who has a specific marketing or sales issue, that's what you need to fill the gap for, not all of the other things, because that's what's going to get you the most return on your investment. Don't invest in potential. Don't invest in alignment. If you're constantly struggling with inconsistent sales and this person very clearly helps people fix that, that is your match. So for examples, if you're a service-based business and let's say you're a designer stuck in client feast or famine, right? Find a mentor whose framework has helped dozens of creatives build consistent 5-figure months. If you're a product-based business and you're sitting on stock with no conversions, find a strategist that helps e-commerce brands specifically scale through content and systems. Now, let's talk about the hidden cost of waiting, because obviously a lot of you guys think about what happens if I do this right now and it doesn't work out. But the question you don't ask yourselves is what happens if I don't do this right now? Worst case scenario, best case scenario, because waiting doesn't just cost you time. It costs you clarity. It costs you confidence. It costs you revenue. It costs you opportunities. Every month that you delay a decision is another month that you miss out on sales that you could have made. You keep patching the same leaky funnel and you waste time optimizing the wrong parts of your business because you don't know what the right parts are. You don't see the cost immediately, but it builds. Let me tell you. It's the revenue gap between where you are and where you could be. It's the burnout that comes from overworking burnt out systems or broken systems. It's the resentment that builds every freaking time you watch someone else take the spot that you could have had. So if you have been kind of hovering in like indecision, that is already a decision. And it's probably costing you more than the thing that you're afraid to invest in, to be totally frank. So I want to ask you some questions or do a little pop quiz, if you will, to help you identify if you're holding yourself back or if you're really actually just being smart about your business investments. This is a rhetorical quiz, obviously, but be honest with yourself when you hear this stuff. So, if you have watched someone for 3+ months and you still haven't moved to work with them, if you say things like, I'm just not sure yet, but you can't name what you are unsure of, or if you do, if you can name what you're unsure of, if they've already answered that concern, you're just holding yourself back. You're just afraid. You keep re-asking questions you already know the answer to. You're waiting to feel quote unquote more ready, but your problem is actively costing you money. Fear is loud. Fear wants to keep you comfortable, but comfortable does not pay your bills. Every level of growth will ask you to move before you feel ready. There has never been a time I have made an investment in my life that I have felt ready to make. Every fucking time I make an investment, I'm like, oh shit. And I'm just like shitting my pants as I fill out the invoice, right? But I know that it's going to be the thing that gets me the results that I'm looking for. And the longer you wait, the more that you reinforce the belief that you cannot trust yourself. The most successful CEOs do not wait until they are certain. They make decisions that make the most sense, and then they commit to making it work. They get scrappy. They stay coachable. They make moves from strategy, not survival. They also know when they're operating from fear. They are self-aware and they hold themselves accountable, and they don't let fear drive the bus. So if you've been hovering over the edge of your next move, whether it's me or not, business coach, consultant, team member, doesn't matter. I want you to ask yourself, am I saying no because it's not the right fit or because I'm scared it won't work? Am I trying to protect myself? Or am I actually just keeping myself stuck? You need to understand your fear is not a problem, but letting it make decisions for you is. Fear is normal. Fear is natural. Allowing it to control your business and ultimately your life, because your business builds your life, is not okay. You're not here to avoid all the risk as a business owner. You're here to learn how to navigate it. You're not here to get it perfect. You're here to learn how to pivot when needed. You are not here to play small and stay safe. You are here to grow boldly, bravely, and strategically and intentionally. Okay? So I hope that this was your number one wake-up call, but also your pep talk to do the thing that you're scared of because you know it will get you the results that you want. So with that being said, if you have questions about what investment you should make next in your business, if you have questions about, hey, is this fear or is this smart of me? I myself have made so many investments. I have clients who I've helped make a lot of investments where, we talk about if it's the right fit for them or not. So if you guys want to talk about that, please DM me on Instagram, and I'm more than happy to give you my insights about if it's the right fit for you, any other questions to ask, things to look at, or if I really do think that it's just your fear holding you back. And if you have been scared to work together with me, and that's something that you want to have a conversation around, even if you are feeling scared, message me on Instagram, because I've had a lot of you guys, like even in my Ask Me Anything, for example, anonymously be like, I really want to make an investment in you, but I am so freaking scared. And that's normal. But if you know that working with me is the thing that's going to get you to where you want to go, do not let that fear hold you back. So message me on Instagram. As always, if you guys have any other marketing or sales questions, message me on Instagram. Tell me what your favorite part of this episode was. Was there like a one-liner that really hit home or gave you a light bulb moment? Let me know, and I will see you guys in the next episode. As always, I'm just so grateful for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.